Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Chris. We've got Vince.
I'm going to make the wizard eat ball.
And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. Chris, were you just making fun of me clearing my throat before we recorded?
No, I've got a little bit of a cold.
I see. I get
He's
you
got
now,
that London flu.
A lot of people, a lot of people coughing throughout these issues. Yeah. We'll talk about that here. Hi, welcome to the show.
Coughing and ending up in coffins.
Oh my goodness! Yikes! It is our death month. January. We always tend to talk about deaths in comics, even though we're not doing that next week, are we? Yeah,
no,
we're gonna.
We've now. I've looked at our history. I thought we did nothing but death comics every January for like every episode, but it looks like we drop it after one episode. So we did Death of Superman, Death of Captain America, Death of Jean DeWolf.
Who was Jean DeWolf again? I remember
she
the
was
name.
A cop in Spider-Man.
Right.
Killed by the Sin Eater.
Yep, cool. But we are talking about one of the bigger deaths that we haven't really talked about much. It's the death of Gwen Stacy from Amazing Spider-Man number 121. And then we're also reading the follow-up issue, which really just kind of deals with the aftermath, 122.
And the death of Norman Osborn, a bonus death.
That's right, yeah. Bonus death. 1973 is when both of these characters died and were never seen again. And Jerry Conway wrote these, art by Gil Kane. Looks like John Romita and T. Mortellaro were the inkers as well. Worth mentioning John Romita there.
I don't know if we've done any Romita Sr. Maybe, I don't know if he did the Groot issue or Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man. I feel like we've covered him maybe in Tale of Astonish.
I feel like we've talked about him, but I don't remember when we would have.
No, because I don't think he did the he didn't work for Marvel at the time. He joined in like the or at least he started working on Marvel superhero stuff a little later because he replaced Ditko.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since this is just 2 issues that we're reading, we're also going to do What If Spider-Man Had Saved Gwen Stacy from What If number 24. That's in 1984. And then, of course, we're continuing Squadron Supreme. We're on issue number 9, getting close to the end of that. Yeah, I think we're ready to jump into these things. Let's do it. Amazing Spider-Man number 121 opens with Harry Osborn back on drugs. This guy, he's taken LSD. I believe that they mentioned this is like his second time doing LSD, and man, it's really shaking him up here. He's like shivering throughout every scene you see him in. He looks like Norman Osborn's dad. He's like a skinny little guy. He's withered. Norman is nuts at this point. He hates Peter Parker. So I guess Norman Osborn knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man knows. Okay,
well,
so hold on. We'll get to that.
It's a weird era for Norman because I'm used to Norman, the businessman who came back from the dead like 25 years later, and he's very much like a Lex Luthor type. And that's how he's depicted like in the Willem Dafoe in the movies. Not so much Chris Cooper in the other movie because he dies pretty much quickly. But like in the video game, like I'm used to this Norman Osborn. I'm not used to this Norman Osborn, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, like running through his warehouses, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, Chris, I haven't actually read much of the original run of Spider-Man aside from like Amazing Fantasy 15. This is obviously like 120 issues, so like 10 years into it. Where is Norman at this point?
Okay, so Norman, basically, he found out who Peter was, and the reveal of Norman Osborn, as I mentioned, when Ditko left was like around issue 36 or so. The rumor was that he left in part because he was upset about it being revealed that Green Goblin was going to be Norman Osborn. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think he already was leaving. So Green Goblin finds out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker in like I said, I think it's like 36 or 37, but he gets amnesia at the end of that issue. And then basically Norman doesn't know that he was the Green Goblin or that Spider-Man was Peter Parker, but it's like buried in his memories. And they've referenced it a couple of times when Peter runs into him where it's like, oh, like, does he remember? Like, he's being so mean to me. But he doesn't quite put it together until this issue when he's like, wait a minute.
I remember.
So Norman hasn't been like going in and out of, and the Green Goblin's been like off the table for like 70 issues, 90 issues?
Yeah, he hasn't been active for like 70 issues. They might have teased it once or twice, but yeah, he has not actually done anything.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, Dr. Octopus was Spider-Man's like main villain for the 60s.
So this was mildly the death of Gwen Stacy. Obviously, we know how this is going to end. This was mildly referenced in the cartoon that I was familiar with, and basically, like Green Goblin was like appeared as a villain in like season 2 halfway through, and then was like a non-entity up until he killed Mary Jane at the end of season 3. So like, and I was like, wow, Norman Osborn just got like elevated like real quickly. And is that pretty much a similar story here? It sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, like he is, I would say, below Kingpin as far as number of appearances. Now he does know Peter's identity, and Peter does know him in his real life. So that's kind of, I think, why he gets like plugged into like the different media, because that's like an interesting, wrinkle that he knows, who he is. And that's, like this is so much of Spider-Man 1, the movie, is like they just took these 2 issues and we're like, oh, okay, we'll just, copy and replace some of this.
That's so. This is kind of like we haven't talked about this before, but now I'm like kind of thrown because like the whole '90s growing up, I was told that the Green Goblin was Spider-Man's greatest villain, and it doesn't sound like he was really in anything until this story, and then he dies in the next issue.
Like I said, that one issue, there's the cover of like Peter unmasked, like tied up, being dragged behind the glider. Like that was a classic issue that everybody remembered, but he basically was like not a ongoing villain for a long time.
Okay. Yeah. Because the feeling I get from these issues is that Norman, it feels like an Archie comic to me. That Norman is just like Peter and his friends, like dad who's a dick, who's like maybe a criminal, like kind of like Veronica's dad is like a criminal. Like that's the vibe I get from these issues. Like that's the era. This whole book, and especially it's weird because like I'm not used to seeing Gwen alive for one, and I'm not used to seeing Gwen with Mary Jane as friends as part of like this quadruplet group with Peter and Harry as like friends. It's very weird for me this issue. If that makes any sense. I'm not used to this kind of character pairing.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how much we want to talk about the plot, but I read Marvel The Untold Story a few years ago, and they go into kind of detail about this. And Jerry Conway he's like 19 years old for one thing.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow. Yes, he was very young. But for another, he's basically like, we've got this great character, Mary Jane. She's dating Harry, who we all know sucks. And Peter's with Gwen, and there's really no conflict. Like Gwen Stacy is not really like, she's like a scientist, and like her dad's dead, and that's like all we know about her. And she loves Peter Parker and is afraid of Spider-Man. That's about it. Like she has no real character. And so Jerry Conway was like, what do we do to get Mary Jane like into Peter's life and get Gwen Stacy out? And then, they were like, well, what if we just killed her?
That is interesting from like a character pairing standpoint. The way you're making it sounds like Gwen pretty much is just ticking all the same boxes as Aunt May.
Yeah, basically. I mean, Aunt May's slowly being written out because Peter's an adult,
right?
And so Gwen is just taking over as like a Aunt May type. Although, like I said, she's a scientist, I guess, is the one difference, or a science student. But yeah, otherwise, she's basically just like a nice girl who likes Peter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know Gwen. I like Gwen in this because I've always been told that story that like Gwen is uninteresting. Like Gwen seems totally fine in this issue. She doesn't seem like.
What does she do in this issue?
She just hangs out. She's nice. She talks to Peter.
She checks on Harry.
She's a nice girl. Like she doesn't seem like I don't know. I'm so used to Mary Jane, so it's weird to see Mary Jane dating other people and Peter not.
Also, she first appears in one of Ditko's last issues, and he draws her like she's some sort of Russian spy. Like she looks completely different. John Romita like completely made her a love interest, and is like, I don't know what he was doing, but she's his girlfriend now. Where when she's introduced, she looks so scheming.
I don't know if we have outright said that Peter Parker does know that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. I think we've kind of talked around that for a second, but it's worth kind of explicitly mentioning that he does know at this point that they are, and that's kind of the reason he's always on edge around them a little bit. he was kind of creeping around Harry's bed for a little while, and he's like, he's watching Gwen and MJ in there, and finally he gets in. He's like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here right now. I feel like I'm not welcome in this house. And actually, I think Norman Osborn is my favorite part of this first issue here, because he looks like a madman. Every time he comes up to Peter, like, what are you doing here? And he's just losing his mind. He has this sort of irrational hate for Peter, even though he doesn't remember exactly why. He just kind of knows. Later,
with a lot of sweat.
A lot of sweat. Yeah, that's what does it. You can tell that there's a lot of internal strife happening when someone's sweating a lot in the comics. But Peter's also sick in this. He was up in Canada, I think they said.
Yep.
And he got sick in the last issue, fighting
the Hulk.
somewhere or other.
I think he's fighting the Hulk in Canada, not Wolverine. Also, but no, and I like that. That's a weird lived-in touch that I like. That also is going to inform the rest of this issue. That Peter is sick. And it's just an outer life outside of these books that Peter's picked up something else. Peter goes to the Bugle and he's coughing everywhere. This cracks me up because Peter's coughing and this is like a 1 week only thing, because apparently there's a British a strain that possibly originated in England of the coronavirus that's a little more it's got a stronger viral load or something. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been discovered now in California and Colorado, and some people are calling it the British flu or the London flu, and some people are like, if we're not calling it the Chinese flu, we can't call it the London flu. Kind of concept. But I do like that Robbie here is like, you got a bit of that London flu going around, which I'm like, this is a 1 week only joke, but I appreciate that. And Peter's coughing like, no, I'm fine, don't worry about it, which is, I feel like post-COVID times is not going to be a thing.
J. Jonah Jameson comes in, and he is like, he's got this rage in his eyes of like, is this fucking guy coughing in my office? Get him out of here. And
I love it. I'm on board with Jameson. Jameson is not on board with people spreading pandemics in his office. He does
not at all. Yeah,
mostly because he doesn't want to pay for them to be off. He doesn't want to pay the sick time.
He's an independent contractor.
Oh boy, yeah.
I do want to say, I doubt our listeners were going to fact check me, but Green Goblin did come back once in between the issue 40 and issue 121. So
there you go. Yeah, I'm sure he would have shown up here and there. It's fine.
Yeah, he came back in the anti-drug issue the first time Harry did LSD, the issue that wasn't approved by the Comics Code.
This one looks like it was approved by the Comics Code. I saw a little CC on this issue.
Right, yeah, that one was, I think, in 96 or 97, and that's the one where Harry first does drugs, and they changed the rules afterwards. They're like, oh, I guess kids can read these if you still make it clear drugs are bad.
Yeah, they definitely made it clear drugs are bad here.
The Comics Code Authority had a lot of weird things, and we've talked about this with Tales from the Crypt. I think the heroes aren't supposed to lose also as part of the Comics Code Authority originally.
Never?
I don't think they're supposed to. I think they're always supposed to win somehow.
Yeah, crime doesn't pay, Kia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But so technically, this also would break some of the rules because Peter obviously loses in this issue. But or Gwen does too. I guess I should. It's not just a man's story. But
I don't know about that. I think it might just be a man's story, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is.
Unfortunately.
Also, I guess so the Green Goblin does come back as a result of Harry's drug use. That's been established, I guess, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
He's still going in and out of remembering what who he is and who Spider-Man is.
And Amnesia's so fucking stupid. I don't get it. It's such a weird, stupid plot device. I can't handle it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But so Norman remembers, and he says, I got work to do now. And he kidnaps Gwen Stacy. Spider-Man gets home, and he's like, ready to finally, I'm back from Canada. We can finally relax and have some us time. And there's a pumpkin sitting on Gwen's purse. Oh no! So he knows what's up. He runs over to, I don't know how he knows where Norman is, but sees him on the bridge. And they have I think this is the part where everyone just kind of knows how it goes from here on out. Even if you've never read this, it's been retold so many times that they're on the bridge, they're having a fight. Norman throws Gwen Stacy down, and Spider-Man tries to get her with the web shooters, hits her leg, and just the force of stopping snaps her neck, and she is dead. And it's like, it is fairly sudden. He's kind of glib throughout it, of like, hey, look at me saving the girl, while he's pulling her up. And like, again, we know that she's dead, but he doesn't. And it's,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pretty rough.
For the time, and I'm going to get ahead to the what if issue. The what if issue reads like every single thing that you would have read and or the Spider-Man 1 movie. Like, she falls off the bridge and like, oh no, but he catches her and he saves her and everything's fine. Like, that's how every single one of these narratives goes. So for it not to go that way is weird. I will say that the first time I saw this story was, again, on the Spider-Man cartoon. I'd had no knowledge of this story or where this was going. And Green Goblin had just gotten elevated by finding out Peter's identity, like literally 10 minutes earlier, and was instantly like, I'm going to murder people. And I was like, okay. And then Mary Jane falls into like a portal, because they're not going to show people's necks being broken on a kid's show. And Peter just doesn't get her, and that's the season finale. I'm like, well, clearly she's going to come back. And she never came back for the rest of the series. She came back as a clone once, Mary Jane did, but Mary Jane was never alive for the back half of the series.
They really referenced the Clone Saga on that cartoon?
Yeah, she came back as a clone and married Harry. Or Peter. No, she may have married Peter, but he definitely married a clone. Peter married Mary Jane clone, which is so crazy. I mean,
maybe one day we watch that show little by little. Maybe not.
I don't know.
It's rough, but like, its plotting is pretty fascinating. But I remember seeing this blow my mind without knowing any comics books history at the time. So I have to imagine that readers of 1973 would have felt similar to that, or thought like, no, this is a cheat. Like, something's going to be undone next issue or something.
Right.
I mean, you would think so. I mean, but yeah, I think it is an interesting thing to kind of shock readers, and obviously it did. You know, there was a lot of like hate mail at the time, because they're like, how could you do this classic character that we all know and love or whatever. But you know, I think it's narratively it makes sense. And then we didn't mention it, but the ambiguity that I really like about it is the that panel of him like webbing her like knee or like boot. And then you see like the snap like written out as the whatever you call that, the it's like onomatopoeia. But it's just like, oh, so like her neck snapped right then. So it creates this ambiguity of like, is this kind of Spider-Man's fault? I mean, obviously it's not really his fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's in the same. I mean, from like a strictly plotting standpoint, like, Uncle Ben died 11 years ago. This gets Peter's guilt and great power comes great responsibility back. Like, it resets it and gives him yet another moment for this after that concept of 11 years being stale. And this one's one of Peter's big guilt trips for the rest of the run.
And it's only been like 4 years since, what's his name? Captain Stacy.
Yeah.
So, like, it's got to keep happening, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the ambiguity of like that. I think that this also, like, Chris, I'm glad you gave me my note. You talked about like how much Green Goblin showed up here, because I had like a lot of notes. And a lot of the things, you know, when monumental issues happen, my questions are like, why this time? Why did it escalate to this time? Because like Green Goblin, Norman finds out he's Green Goblin, remembers Peter's identity, and he's like, all right, 5 minutes from now, I'm going to go murder somebody that's close to Peter Parker. And I'm like, why this time? And it's because he hasn't been around. And this is the crazy thing about like mythologizing comics. It's like, you said, like, even if you haven't read this, and I hadn't read this probably until about like 10 years ago, and I'd been reading comics for forever, I was familiar with the story, but clearly not the details, and clearly not all the details, because you hear about these things through like Wizard Magazine and like forums, but you don't read the actual issues themselves, so you don't know entirely what's going on. And this is just cool, like to see like, okay, well, this is like Green Goblin did that and he immediately went to action. So that's interesting to me from a
it's a very wrestling mindset of like, okay, we've got a villain we're trying to elevate real quick. How do we get them over real quick? Let's have them absolutely squash somebody else, and now you know that they're a big deal.
They present Spider-Man a trophy and then smash that trophy. No, the trophy I loved so much.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's get on to issue number 122. It opens with, Spider-Man like, "Oh my God, Goblin, I'm gonna kill you," but Goblin gets away. The cops are showing up.
I want to talk about this cover though because it clearly says that Gwen Stacy's dead, like on the cover.
Yeah,
Which I know, like I remember like reading like the previews and solicitations every month. This is something you couldn't do in the age of the internet and people like paying attention and reading ahead for the comics that are coming 3 months from now, unless you like blacked out this cover, which I know they've done before.
Yeah. And I actually did want to mention that in the trade collection that I was reading, it's like the Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection. Like if you'd never read, like they do a nice job of kind of hiding it on the back cover, like contains the issues that will forever, change Spider-Man's life or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
But then that chapter is called The Death of Gwen Stacy. So like if you really didn't know what was going on and you're just kind of like trying to read through all Spider-Man, now I don't know how you wouldn't know that Gwen Stacy was.
Yeah.
But it's possible,
The cover is so goofy for that past issue, though. It's like, one of these spider people friends will die.
Yeah, and everyone on there, yeah.
I love that. It's like it could be anybody. It could be Robbie Robertson. It could be Flash Thompson. They could die.
They could die. Yeah, but the cops are there. They're over Gwen's body, and Spider-Man, like I don't know what he hopes to do. He like jumps down and is like, "No," and he's like kind of covering her body a little bit, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's Spider-Man!" And one of the cops is like, "Hey, can't you see this guy's grieving?" And what is Spider-Man says he says she's dead and Spider-Man killed her. And he's like, don't talk to cops. B, don't tell them that. That's the worst thing you could say.
Yeah, they don't know you're being poetic, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Dramatic. And then like 5 pages later, he's like talking to Jameson, like, I bet you think I killed her. Like, well, you did say it, bro.
You say that. Yeah. It's your own damn fault.
That was taken out of context, Jameson.
Yeah.
And this one cop looks like Cletus Cassidy. Like he's ginger haired in every frame. He's like got the Norman Osborn crazy eyes. So he's just like, he admitted it. He admitted he killed her.
Let's get him. So
he's even got like the hair like waved up like Cletus Cassidy. Yeah, he does look like Carnage.
Maybe it is him. Spider-Man goes to Norman Osborn's home. He's not there, but Harry's there, and he's like kind of looking there, and Harry's begging him for help. And Spider-Man's got revenge in his eyes. It's just rage. It's that same rage that J. Jonah Jameson had when someone was sick in his office. It's a very similar feeling there. And Harry's like, "No, don't leave me." Spider-Man says, "I can't. I got things to do." He goes to Robbie at the Daily Bugle looking for some info about where Norman could be, all that kind of stuff. And he's like, no time for anything else. Jameson comes in. He just, webs his mouth. Like, "I don't got time to talk to you. Let's go." He goes and fights Norman Osborn in a warehouse or something. Again, at this point, I was like, it doesn't feel like there really is a lot of like grieving and just kind of like, I expected a little bit more of, like I imagine like he's been hit by a truck with Gwen Stacy dying. I don't really get that impression from a lot of it. It's very like, hey, fight scene, go, go, go.
It's very quick. I don't know if, I mean, like there's no funeral. There's no time to marinate on this. It's just like, this happened. Before I do anything else, I'm going to kill Norman Osborn, which I don't know. I might agree with, though. Like,
I don't
that might be his first emotion. I mean, as we understand, Peter's like, I mean, we've talked about this with superheroes as much as like Peter's an everyman. Like he solves all of his problems by beating people up. So maybe like I kind of get it. I kind of get it. It's interesting though. It happens very quickly. You're right, Kia, because this whole issue happens like really like probably like 20 minutes after the previous issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's I'm not here to defend Peter Parker here, but he was this like weird nerd for 15 years or whatever, and then has like learned to be more of like a regular person since he got spider powers. And this is like his first. I mean, I know he dated Betty Brant for like a year or whatever in the way back when he's a teenager. But like this is his first real girlfriend, and so yeah, he's like lashing out and doesn't have emotional intelligence to like deal with this, smartly. So
Yeah.
I do think, if this is a book aimed for, preteens and young teenagers, yeah, it's like it makes sense. Spider-Man's not an emotionally intelligent person who's going to make good decisions.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I absolutely agree, Chris. I think with that, I also think if you put a funeral in the middle of this, I feel like all of this sudden action doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And
Peter had
I know we're
a
not
moment to cool
we're
his
not reading
head.
the next issue, but there is a funeral next issue, so
Okay. Good.
it does happen on screen. It's just they had to wrap up Norman Osborn first.
That's fair. So they're having this fight in the warehouse. Goblin's got like his tricks, and he's talking about like, oh, she was nothing. What does it matter if she's dead? And I just kind of make Spider-Man more and more angry. And his Goblin glider is coming. Spider-Man ducks, and I think this was in one of the movies, right? Where
This is
Norman
in the
Osborn
first Tobey Maguire movie. Yeah.
The end
Yeah.
of the first movie.
he gets run through by his own Goblin glider, and the Green Goblin is dead. Oh, so sad. There's a dude in the shadows watching. Had to write that down. Had to mention that.
Yep,
Gotta
you
love
can't-
those
can't
dudes.
not. Is this Miles
in
Warren?
shadows.
No, this is Luke Cage.
What?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we know that's
I-
Luke Cage in the
yeah,
next issue.
If I'm plotting this is Miles Warren ready to clone Gwen Stacy. That's what this is.
Yes, if I were to retcon it, that would make more. But or you could keep it as Luke Cage and say he was hired by Miles Warren.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. But Spider-Man gets home. Mary Jane's been waiting there, and he's like, "You don't care. Get out of here." And that's how the issue ends. So.
I actually, this is, I think, a great scene because, as I mentioned, Marvel: The Untold Story. They're saying like, how can we get Mary Jane to be like a love interest? And like this scene works so well. Like this is really good.
I did. Yeah, I was joking about it, but it is a good scene. You're right.
Because it's like he's so cruel to her. Because she's the like ditzy, she's a redhead, but she's like the ditzy blonde type character where she's just like, oh, far out, like we're just having fun. So Peter is really cruel to her, and says, get out of here. I don't want to, I don't want to ruin your good time or whatever. And she closes the door to stay with him, and I think it's really sweet.
That is nice. Oh, that's right. I did like that moment at the end where she is leaving. And she closes the door, but she's still on the inside of the door. That was a really nice moment.
Yeah, and there's no dialogue to any of that. Like that's all. I think it's funny because like the last issue, on the second to last page, Peter's like, don't you see I saved you? Like in a really small voice. And like, I feel like that should have been the ending. But then the next page is like a full splash of him being like, Green Goblin, I'll get revenge.
Right, exactly.
Whereas like, I don't think that works as well. But here they actually do end with a quiet moment. I'm like, oh, this was much better.
I like ending issues with quiet moments. So yeah, that's these two issues here. Obviously a really important time in the life of Spider-Man, and one that's been referenced forever. It's good to kind of finally read it for the show. Anything else to kind of? I actually don't think I had. I felt like maybe I had, but it's always tough to say with some of these old comics because maybe I read them forever ago. It's hard to say what is just acquired knowledge and what is actually stuff that I'd read.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I know I read this at least a decade ago. I'd gotten a Death of the Stacys collection. I remember the Death of George Stacy being a little rough to read, just like I think it might have been written by Stan at the time, and it felt overwritten. And then this is pretty good though. I like the four friends. I like it brings up like so many weird things. Like I remember the Sins Past storyline. Kia, do you remember that one?
God.
Did I read that?
You recommended it to me, so yes, you did. It's stupid, but basically, like, I think there's a scene in this issue where Gwen it flashes back to when Harry's on drugs and in this house. So I remember all the architecture. And Gwen, I think, comes out of Norman's office, crying for some reason in the issues we just read. But in Sins Past, it's because Norman had slept with Gwen and she was pregnant. And so it's trying to give her more agency over her own death. Because basically in this story, it's Norman kills her because she's a friend of Peter's. And it's stupid. And so I don't even think they've been retconned. I think there are still two like accelerated growth clones or children of Gwen Stacy's running around in the Marvel universe somehow.
Great. Great.
I hope Moreland kills those spider-powered people. I assume
Well, they're
they have
not
spider
spider-powered because they're Norman and Gwen's children.
Damn it.
Gabriel,
Well, I hope Moreland
is
kills them anyway.
Gabriel Stacy and Sarah Stacy, I want to say their names are. It's gross. It's just terrible.
All right.
Don't read that. But
What?
I did remember reading that. J. Michael Straczynski. Fun fact.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
2009 era Kia recommends since
No,
past.
this would have been
2009. That would've been
2004.
earlier.
I think what it
Okay.
was is that Deodato had just started. It was Deodato's first arc on Amazing Spider-Man, and it was just different for Amazing Spider-Man. So Kia had recommended
Okay.
it to me.
Maybe I like that. I don't remember what I liked about it, but I remember reading more than just that. I think I liked some other stuff in the JMS run, but
I don't think that stuff is held up very well.
probably doesn't. I don't know. I won't defend it. That was an old opinion. So let's move on to the What If issue now. What if Spider-Man had saved Gwen from What If number 24? This is in 1984. And it starts with, a modern Spider-Man just sitting up on the bridge, remembering Gwen, and we transition to the Watcher, who's watching him. It was like, ha, did you know there's other parallel universes where that didn't happen? Let me show you. And, of course, it's Spider-Man dives down to save Gwen instead of using his web shooters, and kind of then uses the web shooters to get himself to safety. Green Goblin thinks that Spider-Man is dead because he fell down with Gwen.
No
And
one
he's
could
like,
survive falling in the water.
You know what? We're done here. So he goes home.
Good
And-
job, well done. Go to bed.
Gwen revives Spider-Man. It's not that's not just it. Spider-Man's still got to give her mouth to mouth and get her to wake up, and she finally does. And I appreciate that at first it's Gwen wakes up and sees Spider-Man without the mask on and goes, "Oh my God, you killed my dad? No, get out of here." But they take some time to talk about it, and Peter realizes how much he loves her because he almost lost her, and proposes, and hooray, they're gonna get married. But first,
Right there on the pier too. They're not like, hey, let's take this to a rooftop or whatever. They're like, there's just a longshoreman walking by, oh look, it's Spider-Man.
it's an emotional moment.
These are things that I'm just these are crazy young people. They're we just went through this traumatic experience. Let's get married. That does not seem like the best thought right now. But okay.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Nobody who gets married at 19 to their first girlfriend after she almost falls off a bridge has ever regretted it.
Well, in the same page where she's like, "You killed my father. Let's get married."
But there is Peter takes some time to explain, and it's okay, who knows how much time has passed there, so I'm okay with that a little bit.
Yeah, who knows how many longshoremen walked past and were like,
Right,
hey, it's Spider-Man's got his mask off. I don't know who he is.
Yeah,
I did like that moment in Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire one, where he's doesn't have his mask on the train, and they're I don't know who this is. Nobody knows. It's just some kid in a mask. I don't know.
Some kid. Yeah.
Exactly. New York is not a place where you're oh, that guy.
Yep. So first, before they can get married, he's got to go take care of Norman Osborn because he's still mad at him, and he goes to attack him at his warehouse where he's talking to some goons. And he's "Oh my God,
this feels like the Dark Knight Joker's pencil scene."
It does. Yeah.
He's "I've got this plan," and they're "Why should we trust you? You're a loser, Green Goblin." I do like that all the mobsters are that way.
The mobsters are "No, trust me. I killed Spider-Man."
Yeah, the mobsters are rightfully "You have no proof of this. He fell in the river."
Yep. And Spider-Man shows up, and they're "Ah," and they get beat up. Norman Osborn says, "Hey, this guy's gonna follow me to the ends of the earth. All right, I'm gonna get out of here." He drops something in the mail as he escapes.
I wonder so Norman, we presume it had this envelope ready, right?
Right.
But did he have a stamp for it already? Or is he going to the post office? Because he drops it off in just a mailbox on the street.
I mean, postage was 6 cents back then for one thing. So.
Yeah, probably no big deal. They deliver it anyways.
He keeps it in his satchel also.
In his little pumpkin bomb satchel. I do love too, and the other story had a little bit of it, but this one has even more. Where he's "I'm the protagonist of reality. Is Spider-Man special like me, the protagonist of reality? No, he's just a man."
I wonder why Norman didn't mail this in the real version. I mean,
he was dead.
Well, before that, he still got away from the fight while he was
That's true. So this is a double what if. What if Peter had saved Gwen, and what if Norman had remembered to mail something?
Yeah. This feels very independent of the Gwen Stacy dying or not. It's like for the middle portion of this comic, it's just Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin. Nothing to do with Gwen Stacy.
We're halfway through this, but yeah, this issue should have been purely focused on like if Gwen had lived, what would be different? Because this is written like 12 years after the issue we just read?
It does get back to some of that in a bit. Spider-Man first goes home goes to Norman Osborn's home to try and kill him there, and Harry who is still sick with LSD.
Yeah, feel like this. I feel like this book forgot that part.
Right. Yeah. Right. He seems to recover.
He's like, "Hey, you can't hurt my dad," and Spider-Man like kind of instinctively shoves him off. But Harry loves his dad so much, and that love cures kind of Norman Osborn's mania in a way. He's just like, "Oh, my son still cares about me." He was getting ready to blow up the whole place, and he's like, "I'm not going to do this now. I'm gonna this button, which looks very fragile and easy to push. He just tosses it, which I disagree with. But that's okay." And Harry Osborn says, "Just give us some time. We'll fix it. Go away, Spider-Man." And Spider-Man's like, "All right."
I mean, I guess in this world, he's only an attempted murderer.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul, guys. I'll leave y'all alone.
So they go. Gwen and Peter go tell Aunt May. They plan the wedding. They're getting married. We fast forward to however long it takes. Apparently, the wedding is happening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll get to
Go
that.
ahead.
I don't know how long this is the difference between the wedding and this time are.
It seems like it had to be pretty fast.
Yeah.
For a plot point that's about to happen. Yeah. That we all know what the package in the mail is happening.
Right.
Yeah. It's like 3 to 5 business days later. They're like, let's get there.
During the wedding, J. Jonah Jameson runs in, and he's got a bunch of cops with him. And Norman Osborn had sent him proof that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Oh my God! And everyone knows it. This is my panel of the week here. Aunt May fainting as she finds out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and the wedding
Spider-Man.
is like, oh!
You know what? He predicted it. He said if Aunt May finds out that I am Spider-Man, she'll have a heart attack and die.
And she does. Yes, she has like a heart attack. Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, she fainted." It's like, guys, I think it's worse than that.
Yeah. And like cops are shooting, and Spider-Man's like, "All right, I gotta get out of here." And he like,
yeah, we didn't mention either. Robbie is the one that takes Gwen Stacy down the aisle. I was like, I knew they were because he does mention in the original story, he's like, "I've known Gwen ever since I knew Captain Stacy, her father." But it's like, but you're not like her dad. I mean, I know her dad's dead.
Right.
But I would still think
you're not like on the ranking list of like who I would then have me walk down the aisle. Where does Robbie fall into this chart? I don't.
Yeah, I was just number one. He doesn't have any family that wants to do that.
Yeah. Right. Or I don't know. Or another close male friend. I don't know.
It should have been Flash Thompson. You're right.
Should have been Norman.
He's already a groomsman.
Yeah, that's true. I do though. I think if I wrote What If, every single issue I wrote, Aunt May would find out Peter's Spider-Man and die. That would be like my Kenny moment for every single What If issue. That's what I would do.
Okay. Like she just gets a picture, like a letter in the mail that says your nephew is Spider-Man, and he's like, no.
That would be my thing. Every issue.
That's not bad. So Spider-Man has to live his life forever on the run from the cops, and his life is ruined. And that's
he also is the stupidest man in the world because he's just like, they're like, "We're here to arrest you because under suspicion of being Spider-Man," and he like throws the cops across the room and leaps out the window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
dude. So, all you had to do, I know you're not like the smartest man in the world. You're like 19 years old, but like, and I know it because I've read other comic books, so I know how to do it. But it's like, all you do is you just play dumb, and you're like, "This is a big misunderstanding." You hire Matt Murdock as your lawyer, and then you're like, "Matt Murdock, please make sure we're not being recorded." Mm-hmm. Have someone dress up as Spider-Man while I'm in jail. That's all
Chris,
you have.
Is this something that happens to you as a lawyer?
Yeah, this has happened to me 3 or 4 times. That we have to clear a suspect by having someone dress up as. It's pretty common. But yeah, that's. I mean, that's how it happened in a Daredevil storyline, 15 years ago now? It's been a long time. But
Batman just got an inflatable Batman and then walked around with it as Bruce Wayne. So you can do that.
Right. Or he gives Dick Grayson like little stilts or something so he can walk around as Batman.
Yep.
Or there was the time Superman disguised himself as Batman in the animated series. That was a great episode. So that's all you have to do. And like, it doesn't have to be an exact match. You just have to like get his photo taken, like beating up, I don't know, Electro. And they're like, well, I guess that's him.
I have a question. Go ahead, Vince. You had something.
So here's my in continuity explanation for this. Jameson never opens up that envelope. I'm thinking that the Bugle has done its due diligence, spent 4 to 5 months investigating this thing, and it's got an airtight case before they publish it. That way, they give them enough time to plan the wedding. So Jameson has an airtight. There is no getting around this. The Bugle has done its diligence because he is a good newspaper man. And this is it's airtight. Everybody does know this Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He's not getting it.
My question was going to relate to that a bit because I was curious to know what proof did Norman Osborn have? Because, like, you know, in continuity, a few hours before that moment, he had forgotten that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. And so, but where was this evidence that he had apparently collected that had like concrete proof? So maybe it wasn't concrete proof. Maybe it was just
changing, right? Like that's
right,
the only
something
thing.
like that.
But even then, you know, and I know it's Stan Lee comics. I feel like they should count in continuity. But there was the time where he gets unmasked and he's Peter Parker, and Dr. Octopus, at the time he was like losing his powers or something. Dr. Octopus is like, well, Peter Parker dressed up like Spider-Man. That's why he was so shit. So like there's already footage, or there could be footage of Peter Parker dressed as Spider-Man because that story already happened. And they're like, oh, these are two different people. He knows Spider-Man, so he must have, taken his costume once. Yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of plausible deniability until he's like, no way, you can't take me alive on his wedding day, and like punches out a cop and leaps out a window.
Yep. Dumb Peter.
We'd had a contest that how many kids do they have? I feel like that question is null and void at this point.
we didn't go that far. Yeah. I guess zero because they're.
Yeah, Chris had 1, so I think Chris wins. Kia had 3. I remember reading this. I clearly don't remember much of it. I remember them getting married. But that's apparently all I remember. I would have assumed that this would have just been like a let's show the next 20 years of their lives issue. No. But I guess not.
Yeah.
It's a very Twilight Zone-y ending. It's like you wished for this, but actually Peter Parker's life was still bad.
Yeah, he can never be happy.
It's such a Twilight Zone ending with the Watcher talking that way.
Yeah, I like when he's in the shadows, he's like, will I become a monster like Jameson says I am? I hope not. I'm like honestly, again, you know, I know like your life as Peter Parker as you knew it is over, but you know, like Ben Reilly, you know, I maybe it's cheating to reference the Clone Saga. Ben Reilly just grew his hair out because he's a clone who looks exactly like Peter. He grew out his hair, grew a beard, and moved away from New York. And it's the 70s, so nobody really noticed. so maybe think about doing that.
It's a good idea.
Not a bad idea at all.
I do want to reference also the Marvel is making a What If television series that's animated, and it looks pretty good. I don't know if y'all have had a chance to look at it, but the animation looks pretty good. It's got the actors from the movies voicing them. So like Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Even Chadwick Boseman actually recorded an episode before he passed away. And it's what if T'Challa got taken by Yondu for the Guardians of the Galaxy instead of Star-Lord. So that could be a cool episode. There's also what if like Peggy Carter took the super soldier serum. That'll be an episode. So like dumb what ifs. I don't think we've covered any what if on this thing. This was fun enough. It made me more like the original issues a little more that we read.
I actually do. Yeah, I agree. I had a hard time remembering what was canon and what was just what if. But it did inform the original issues quite a bit.
It's also, and you know, maybe it's just not fair because the Death of Gwen Stacy is considered like a classic, but the first like 6 pages are just like, it's literally, you know, copy and paste exactly what happens until, you know, saving her. So I'm like, that's kind of lazy to me. It's like you've got so much time to tell the story, and you're going to spend like a fifth of it or a sixth of it, literally shot for shot, doing the exact same story beats, like literally down to the dialogue. Like it's the same.
Yeah, I will give them credit though. We didn't say this at the beginning though. It's a different writer, but Gil Kane did do the art on this one also.
Oh, I don't really think I realized that. But yeah, I was thinking about how much it did. Part of me did appreciate how much it lined up with the original, and then it went for the change. And you're like, hey, this is where things get different. I see. Yeah. From a cinematic point of view, I kind of get that, but it does feel like it wastes time in the comic.
Right. Yeah. You could have had page 2 be like, here I go saving her.
Right.
And then if you wanted to tell the story that lasts beyond, oh, my wedding is ruined.
Yep.
Oh, it says Gil Kane was the artist. Now I'm wondering if Gil Kane was the artist for these 6 issues, and then Frank Giacoia was the artist for the rest of these issues.
I could be
the artist for the rest of this stuff. Okay. Tony Isabella was the writer, and O'Neill was the editor. It's probably Denny O'Neill, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was the 80s, so yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Either way, what if fun?
Yeah.
I don't know if any of these are any good. The TV show looks good though.
Yeah, I'm a fan of just having fun with the idea of comics. So I'm all about what ifs and non-canon.
I just would have wanted more. I think I wanted to see their whole life story rather than him beat up the Green Goblin and then get outed at his wedding.
I did see on Marvel Unlimited they have the what if from this series that's like what if the Avengers formed in the 50s, and that's where Agents of Atlas came from.
Nice.
So at least that then later did become continuity. So some of these actually did, inspire other stories, which I think is the best kind of what if. I think the ones that are just kind of lazy, what if the Punisher's family didn't die? I'm like, I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of the reasons also I liked Exiles. We haven't really talked about that too much on the show, but it's like a team of reality hopping mutants running into like parallel worlds. And it's like, hey, this version of this guy's kind of cool. And then eventually little by little, some of them become canon or whatever. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, we didn't mention like the Gwen Stacy didn't come obviously out of that. She came out of Spider-Verse. Spider-Gwen did. In a universe where Gwen lived and Peter died. Mostly because Peter became the spider. Or Peter became the lizard.
The lizard. Yeah.
The lizard, yeah. Which I really like Peter Parker as the lizard. It's great.
I love that they put that even in the Spider-Verse movie, that they never explicitly say it, but it's in the imagery of her friend dying, is what she said. And she couldn't save him. But you can see her clearly killing a lizard. It's pretty cool. Yeah, but so Gwen's alive in movies today. And she's a cool character. I like her.
She's a great character. Yeah.
Emma Stone did a good job as her also in the Garfield.
I really think she did. Yeah, I thought Emma Stone was a great Gwen Stacy.
It does seem like literally opposite casting, that Kirsten Dunst played Mary Jane and Emma Stone played Gwen Stacy. Like, why? Right. Why would you, like their whole personas, every other movie they're in, Kirsten Dunst is like
true.
The like nice blonde, girl next door. And Emma Stone is like the tomboyish, like, funny girl. It would make more sense. Is all I'm saying. Yeah. But we didn't know who Emma Stone was at the time, and we dodged Lindsay Lohan being Mary Jane, which would have been really bad, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I still forget Bryce Dallas Howard
and Tobey Maguire's chemistry.
And Bryce Dallas Howard played Gwen also. But yeah.
Oh, there. I think it is time we start to move on to Squadron Supreme here. Any last words about Spider-Man?
No.
That? All right. Let's move on to Squadron Supreme. We're on issue 9 now out of 12, so we're wrapping out the third quarter here. The cover is Tom Thumb has the cure for his cancer, I presume. But we'll get to that here. The story is Dr. Decibel is currently running some tests on Hyperion to try and see if his vision is going to be restored. I guess we didn't really notice it, or they didn't explicitly say it at the end of the last issue, but while Hyperion was fighting fake Hyperion, they were both using their eye lasers, and he is currently blinded. Zarda, Power Princess, she is watching this, and I think she even said she's on an emotional roller coaster. She realizes that, she only loved the fake Hyperion because she thought it was the real Hyperion, and just kind of like didn't realize how much she loved him. But the real Hyperion has shown no feelings towards her, which I kind of like that little touch here of explaining why she fell for him so quickly. Is kind of just kind of always been that way.
Yeah, that's even a little more sad that she had a crush on the
Yeah.
real Hyperion, and then this one, and then the fake one showed her some affection, and now she's all like more discombobulated because of that.
Right.
Right.
Firefox, meanwhile, the other kind of
Foxfire.
key.
Um,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
gonna say Firefox
Fo-
is an internet browser.
Sorry, Foxfire. Is looking through some old records as well. She's like the third part of it. I don't know if you'd even call it a love triangle because Foxfire and Hyperion were starting to do some flirting there before all this happened. But anyway, she's looking.
I like this a lot. Yeah, she's watching like old tapes of when she was a villain. I really like the idea that the villains were given very selective mind control or mind behavioral modification to like make them stop being villains in a certain capacity, but their true colors are still showing through. Like they're still schemy, they're still mischievous, and they're still like trying to like figure out like ways to get around the behavior modification, even though they like can't, but they're still trying to figure things out. I don't think I got until this moment that those villains were like super high level Squadron Supreme villains, like A tier villains, and not just like B or C tier. Like I thought these were just like the wrecking crew of villains for some reason in my head.
Yeah, I do consider them like B plus tier, where they're like the main teams that have kind of worked for a lot of people, because you get the impression that a lot of them had previously worked for Master Menace, the Doctor Doom type character. Yeah. You see that they had worked for the Scarlet Centurion from the future. You kind of get the impression like they are higher tier, but there's always kind of someone bigger than them pulling the strings.
Yeah, I think I thought they were like super like just wrecking crew. Like we're gonna defeat these dudes as like a
they're important.
Cold open.
Yeah,
they're a little more important than that.
Yeah, I do like that in this footage. We also see the original Squadron Supreme, which had a few differences in the team. I didn't really, look too specifically at them, but I think they might have had like Blue Eagle's dad, who I think they had mentioned was like a former hero. I do like they also touch on the Scarlet Centurion and kind of remind us about this guy from the future who, like a big old fight.
From the 41st century, huh?
41st. I think I wrote down 21st somewhere. But she also looks up her own file just to be kind of curious, and she's like, it's not that full. They don't really have too much on me.
I like that touch also. Like the idea that like Batman's files are so deep and he knows everything about all of us. Like, I bet he doesn't. Like, if we really like called his bluff on it, it might be like 3 paragraphs. And that's it.
She's starting to look up the Scarlet Centurion just to kind of learn more about him from the future, and she gets interrupted by Dr. Spectrum, who. He's pretty high on our list of hated members of the Squadron Supreme here.
Now a lot of the douches are gone, so
yeah. He uses his Green Lantern-y ring stuff to hug Foxfire, who first fights back like, hey, what's the big idea? And then she realizes it's him, and she's not allowed to harm a member of the squadron. So she's just like, the look in her eyes as well is like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't know I'm not allowed to do that.
That's a cool wrinkle too. I don't think it's a comic booky wrinkle. Like I can do whatever I want unless I know I'm not supposed to, and then I can't.
And that comes back as well. But
they've explained earlier that it's like just the idea of doing crime makes me sick to my stomach. So it's like they're just repulsed by the idea of like hurting a squad member.
Yeah. So she fights back a little at first until she realizes it, and then Dr. Spectrum's kind of flirty with her, and then she gets like real flirty, winking at him. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, she's got a real Grace Jones energy here, and you're just like, oh, okay. I guess they're just gonna immediately have sex.
Yep.
Good for her.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Blue Eagle is visiting Quagmire. Quagmire had saved. Quagmire had saved all the people from the deadly gas in the last issue. Blue Eagle feels bad about it. He's still recovering. There might be some permanent brain damage, though. Eesh, I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
Nothing good, I'll tell you that.
Nothing good. Lamprey and the Wizard are playing some tennis. Lamprey has leached off some of Wizard's speed, and so they're just having a pretty good, evenly matched tennis game. It's pretty nice.
Everybody's they're having fun, but everybody else watching is like, this is kind of boring.
Yeah, Arcana's husband goes and just kind of checks on the kids. They're hanging out with Shape. There's not really much to this scene, but I just really like it. Shape has stretched himself out to a big trampoline. The kids are bouncing on him. He's just having a good time. I think Shape might be the happiest to be a hero out of all the villains who have been mind controlled, behavior modified. Meanwhile, we cut to Tom Thumb and Ape X. Tom Thumb is still working on his plan to try and cure all disease. He's kind of given up on himself, but he still wants to cure people, and he realizes he might not be able to do that, but he can make a way to cybernetically freeze people. Wait, cybernetically, is that the right word? Why did I write that down? Cryogenically, that's what I meant. Freeze people until they find a cure. We also get confirmation that Ape X has the hots for Tom Thumb. I love it. I kind of saw the seeds of that a while back, and Tom Thumb's like, I appreciate the help, baby. And it's like, oh, if only I wasn't a half-robot gorilla. Oh, well.
I mean, he's already in a relationship with his computer.
That's also true. Yeah, that's another weird love triangle I was kind of looking forward to here. But it goes in a direction I didn't think. He starts coughing and he runs away, and
it's just like
what?
Again, we're in another situation where somebody coughs
and
somebody goes, "Are you okay?" and goes, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah, don't worry about it. He runs away. Aida, the computer, is worried about him. He's like, "No, I got to tell somebody to save my master. Like, I've been programmed not to say anything because Tom Thumb didn't want me to, but I also know that I'm programmed to save my master, and this is the only way I can do that." Which, like, I really like that as kind of a counter to the behavior modified version of the villains, where the computer is in a similar position but can also still use logic to get around it. I'm into that.
Hey, Kia, have you ever read I, Robot by Isaac Asimov?
I never have. No.
That's all this is. And if you like this point, I think you'll really like iRobot, because you know how Asimov has like the 3 laws of robotics, like robot, a robot should not harm a human. A robot through its own action or inaction cannot let a human harm. And then every single story is a short story in there is showing how those rules break down.
Yeah.
To the point, like, I think there's even one chapter of like the robots think, well, if we just put all the humans in bubbles and then just feed them through tubes, then they can't come to harm. It's a really cool, just like logic based thing. So if you like that idea of the robots having that kind of challenge, I would check out iRobot.
I'm into
hot
it.
take. Asimov is an interesting sci-fi
He's a pretty good writer.
No, I'm only familiar with the movie. Will Smith is in these books.
With Alan Tudyk. Yep.
Oh boy. All right. So Aida, the computer, goes and tells Apex about what's going on. We'll see more of that later. We cut to Nighthawk, former President Batman. Him and his crew of former villains are also still going around trying to collect a team. I guess who's the Doctor Strange type character, the Dr. Fate character? Dr. Imam, was that his name? I don't remember. Has given them like a pyramid that's going to lead them to other superpowered individuals who they can gather for their team. And so that's, just kind of a little B story here in this issue of them going around. I like that we do see more of Remnant's power set. I know they'd kind of been going around on this magic carpet. I didn't realize that was Remnant's magic carpet and that his whole power set is like fabric based. He's the guy who makes the costumes for everyone. He's got an interesting look. Have we talked about it? Where he's got like short pink hair and like pink cyclops type goggles.
Like it's almost Mole Man glasses.
Yeah.
He's very 80s punk, bad guy in a final fight.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in this issue.
There's a lot. So he and Nighthawk get on the magic carpet while Mink and Pinball stay in the jet, and they go recruit kind of a big dude who we only see in a shadow. We'll learn more about him later. Apex is now talking with Tom Thumb about his cancer, saying like, all right, so you've tried everything? Yeah. Like, And he's like, well, the Scarlet Centurion had something, but he wanted me to kill Hyperion, and I'm not going to do that. And so Apex says, why don't you just go steal it? And he's like, well, that's theft. I don't know if I can do that. And they're like, well, it's for the greater good. Like, it's fine. That guy's not doing anything with it. And
also like dying from cancer. Cancer is not good for people either. And if something exists, I really do appreciate that. I like the wrinkle. The villain, the ex-villains are my favorite part of this book, and how they're like getting around things. But they're also like a cool morality also that I like. Right,
of like her perspective of like, hey, you know what? It's okay to steal because this is going to help you. And Tom, but Apex cannot literally help Tom Thumb because she knows it would be stealing, and she's not allowed to do it, even though she knows it's the good thing to do.
But hey, why don't we lie to somebody else, one of the other villains, and then he can steal it without knowing it?
Yeah, and so that's exactly what they do. They take Lamprey, the leech guy, and they're going to go retrieve this thing that the Scarlet Centurion stole from Tom Thumb. Great. And Tom Thumb feels a little bit bad about lying, but it's all right. So they head to the 21st century. We'll get more. 41st century.
I was going to say, they go to 2021. They get the vaccine.
Yeah, the 41st century. Sorry. Meanwhile, Zarda goes to speak with Hyperion about everything. He's just lying there blind in the bed. And, Hyperion's all business. He's like, hey, by here, you've been doing a good job as leader. If you want to stay leader, I'm okay with that. And Zarda's like, you fool, I love you, and kisses him. And that's where that scene kind of ends. So we'll see where that goes. I
appreciate how dorky Hyperion, when she's like, I found out I had feelings for the real you, and he's like, well, I have a lot of respect for you as a person, blah blah blah, and she's like, shut up,
yeah. Kiss me. Remnant now has made a costume for this new character that they've got. They call him Mr. Redstone. I guess he might just be Redstone as a villain. He's a big powerhouse kind of guy. A big old R on his chest. I'm not quite positive who he would be like a stand-in for. We don't know much about him yet. But the pyramid is glowing. They head to their next pickup. We don't see who that is yet, but I like that President Batman is collecting a team of former villains, or still, I guess technically still villains, just kind of help him take down the squadron. Back in the 41st century, Tom Thumb and Lamprey are basically having like a real action-packed adventure, trying to get around a bunch of guards. Lamprey's doing most of the action work, and Tom Thumb is just kind of like, trying to lead them to where they need to go. They make a real mess of all these jars of this solution, this cure that they have. Most of the jars are broken, and I think he takes the only good jar and goes home with it. And I do appreciate that Scarlet Centurion is watching all of this happen on a screen. And he's just kind of amused by it. He's like, oh, Tom Thumb finally did it. I was wondering when he'd get around to that. Cool. The guards ask him, like, hey, should we go after him? Like, nah, I know how this ends. It's fine. Tom Thumb goes home, studies the cure-all, and it turns out it's just penicillin and a few vitamins. What? And he realizes, oh man, it's because like the future folks have had years to like develop immunity to a lot of stuff, and so they don't need much of anything. It's all thanks to eugenics bolstering their immune system. It doesn't work for us because we're not that eugenically fit yet.
Hooray!
I'm like, wait, what? Tom Thumb, you were so far like one of my favorite characters here in the squadron. Like, what?
Yeah,
Tom Thumb.
Characters you love, and then they're like, eugenics is a good idea. And you're like,
eugenics?
Wait.
Yeah.
We'll just breed out the bad things.
And then I kind of remember, like, yeah, he is the guy who made the behavior modification machine.
He doesn't have much humanity. He's like, well, we can save these people's lives. We just have to freeze them for years until we find a cure. But, I think they'll be down with it.
Yeah, what happened was they were, Scarlet Centurion was playing Civilization. He researched the wonder cure cancer, and he got it. So cancer was cured, and he didn't need to actually, give a cure out. It's done. So, yeah, Tom Thumb disappointed, and that's why he's like, yeah, just let him leave. Who cares? Because he knew, and it does make him more of a jerk in hindsight that he traveled to the past to offer him the cure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When he's just like, yeah, I know this won't do anything.
It won't work for you. Oh, what a jerk. Yeah,
Chris,
I'm sitting here going...
Without too much spoilers, I know who Scarlet Centurion is supposed to be. Is that going to be revealed in this arc?
I have not read the end of it, so I can't answer this question.
Okay.
And I don't remember what you're talking about at all, so I don't know.
Okay. Don't Google who Scarlet Centurion is. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I've read this and I don't remember. So Tom Thumb, he returns the potion. I don't know why. He knows it's just penicillin and vitamins. Like they can make more of it. It's okay. But then like we get a caption bubble for the last panel of this book that says, while working on ways to better humanity, Tom Thumb died a week later. And that's it.
Yeah.
He's dead.
In a different font. It really threw me because I was reading it like panel by panel on my phone. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. It's like, and then it's over. And you're like, whoa. And like, I do like that he got to have this kind of one last adventure before his death. Like this felt like a very Tom Thumb focused issue. I don't like that he turned out to be a giant asshole, but that makes me also okay with him dying, Weird book. This book just keeps like throwing me for a loop in terms of how I feel about everyone. I don't know. Yeah. But that's that issue. I haven't looked ahead at the cover of the next issue. What is this cover?
Caught in the Quagmire.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the Quagmire issue. We're gonna find out what happens.
Yeah, so we'll see if he is brain damaged. We'll see what's going on. It's even got Quagmire up on the character bubble. Like he's the focus. Interesting. Okay.
I mean, he's only the focus in a way.
In a way, yeah. We'll see what happens.
Who was the focus of this? It was Tom Thumb. Was Tom Thumb?
It was Tom Thumb.
Okay, was the icon?
I think so.
It was Hyperion.
Oh.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
he should have been the focus a couple of issues ago.
At last, The Cure is what this issue is called, but there was no Cure songs in here at all.
There was no. Yeah, they didn't show up. Maybe they would have been behavior modified to play happy music. That could have happened. All right. Well, I think that's stupid. But that's it for this issue. We'll of course continue on next time with Squadron Supreme number 10, starting to get towards the end of it. And we are going to be reading, for our main read, some West Coast Avengers. Have we actually read any West Coast Avengers for this show? I don't think we have.
I've never read a West Coast Avengers.
But we are reading some issues that are focused on the Vision and Scarlet Witch, Wanda. They've got that new show that's going to be coming out, Vision and Wanda. What's it called? Wanda and Vision?
Wanda Vision, January 15th. So I guess 2 Fridays from now?
Okay.
From when this comes out, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to be reading some select issues that had to do with this. It's issues 50 through 52, and then 56 and 57. So a little break where I don't know what else was happening there, but we're just kind of getting into the meat of some of the Vision and Scarlet Witch stuff.
I think the show's supposed to be more with the Tom King Vision, kind of there. But I honestly haven't seen a trailer for it, so I don't really know. But we're gonna zig where we should zag. So, I mean, yes. This is big stuff though, because this just looking ahead, this is like where Scarlet Witch and Vision's children come into play in some way, which I know was heavily. We haven't covered Young Avengers. I assume everybody has read it, but obviously probably not. But that we
should.
Part.
That's
we should. Yeah, I like Young Avengers. But we're going to get into all that. I believe it's been reprinted in West Coast Avengers, the second volume of reprints they did on that, but perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, 50 to 52, 56 to 57. What year would this have been? That's
89, I think is what I read.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll get into all that. Anything else we got to talk about? Anything else y'all want to plug?
I've got just a minor plug. Games Done Quick is going on this week that this comes out, which is the video game streaming. This seems like a dumb tie-in, but they raise charity money. They do speed runs of classic video games, and they raise money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. Minor tie-in, I guess, to our shoe, whatever.
Oh no, it's also a really good cause. Very entertaining. Lots of variety to the types of speed runs they have on there, and even when they're not running their big events, they have like weekly content of just various types of speed runs, which I always appreciate. So
yeah, just showing like the way that games are put together. You can see like cool runs of Super Metroid, how like Super Mario 64 glitches that you can exploit to beat the game. It's really cool. They raise about 2.5 to 3.5 million every year they do this for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. I usually throw $50 their way. It's a really good cause. It's super entertaining content. I think it's on Twitch, but then they put recordings of it on YouTube. So
yeah. Speaking of Twitch, I'm still streaming. If anyone cares to pop in, Kiarash is the name. That's with 3 R's, KIARRRASH. I've been playing Mario Maker, some Mario ROM hacks, which I'm having a hard time adjusting to the physics there compared to Mario Maker. Me
and Bruce were watching one of yours on Instagram on your like 30-second loop, and I was like, God damn, Kia's really good at this.
I've gotten good with some of them here, but yeah, there's still a lot of tough stuff I can't do. So. It's definitely been fun to work my way up. So if you feel like watching somebody die at Mario over and over until he gets it, definitely check that out. But I've also been playing Hades, Ori and the Blind Forest. I've been really enjoying.
I need to play that. Yeah. That's on Game Pass.
Yeah. It's a few other little things. So pop in if you like this and you feel like watching some of that. And Chris, you've still got your Stupid Minds going on?
Yes, I believe I referenced it last episode, but it's available the night before Christmas, 2019 Netflix release. We have some special guests that Vince at least knows,
That was
Danielle
a good
and Valia.
episode. That was a good episode, and I like how y'all had like a weird amount of continuity in your episode because I think Valia had just randomly said like in 2017, like we'll be back for Christmas 2020. And y'all called her out on it. So.
Yes,
we
played, like, I think, Survivor music, and then had like a previously on, which we almost never do. But I was like, this will be a funny joke.
It's
and,
cute. It was really cute. I enjoyed it.
And Nick did all the work to make that joke turn into reality. So good.
Nice.
It was a good episode, though.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Oh, and Chris and I are big wrestling fans. I'd really like to give a shout out, a rest in peace for Brody Lee, who died over the last couple of weeks. Huge talent who died way too young at the age of 41. Just kind of like an unexpected lung thing that popped up. And even better than that is that just the outpouring of love from everyone in the wrestling community. Like it's a business filled with like real shitty people and carnies and like terrible folks, and just to hear that this guy was like a very pure good person was really sad to hear. They ran a big tribute show for him. They canceled their plans for their weekly show, AEW Dynamite, and they ran a tribute show, which is like possibly the greatest wrestling show of like the last 20 years, if not more so. It's absolutely beautiful. People like breaking down and crying in the ring while they're like doing tribute spots to him, and
matches chosen by his son.
Yeah, so. Of just like putting together like, hey, it's like if you were putting together a comic book and you said, my favorite heroes are Spider-Man, Superman, and Lobo or whatever. And like, why would these three people team up? We don't care. We're just going to do it for the sake of this one show and put them together and have like a superhero team up with these people just because. And it was so beautiful and refreshing. The guy had worked for WWE for years, and their tribute videos, they were just like, fuck it, we're going to use pictures from these people and like cross company lines, which I'm glad they did because it just like gave everyone just a chance to remember everything. So yeah, I know this is not a wrestling podcast, but hey, wrestling, comic books, video games, I feel it's all in the same world there. So yeah, definitely if you love wrestling at all and want to see like a pure side of the industry, 100%. Just watch that last episode of Dynamite from last Wednesday, last episode of 2020. Just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So highly recommend it. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. Also a good reminder to just, tell all your friends you love them. Vince, I love you.
Love you too, Kia.
Chris, I love you.
That cough.
Jeez. All right.
I'll talk to you guys later. I'm feeling great.
All right, great. Time to end the show. And listeners, we love you. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.